Information on today's most beneficial products and services. This is Experts on Call on AM 650.
Welcome back to Key Pacific's Talk About Strata. I'm Stirling Fox. Tony Gioventu is the Executive Director of the Condominium Homeowners Association of British Columbia. Tony, you run a fantastic website, CHOA, CHOA.bc.ca is just a fabulous website. I imagine it receives just an unbelievable number of hits on a weekly or monthly basis. It's that good.
Daily basis, it's well over 800 users a day. So it's at the large capacity, but there's a lot of information and resource, a lot of links, a lot of educational materials, sample documents that strata corporations and strata councils can use, accessible to the general public. There's a members-only section as well, but there's a lot of information that's available on the website.
I use it for homework for a program. It's tough to keep up with a guy like you, and your website is extremely helpful for a person like me. Just before the break, we were talking about the liability associated with snow and ice and removal. Well, here we are, just a few days before Christmas. The holiday season is just, the big weekend is coming up here. We've got guests arriving, Tony, and let's just assume that we're going to have some snow issues over the next while, and somebody's snow removal company is going to push it all into a place that, well, should be for guest parking. So now what happens? My people are coming in from the prairies. They're going to be tired. They're going to park that car for a few days and forget about it. There's no place to put them. What's going on here? I have expectations that aren't going to be able to be met.
You know, this is the biggest nightmare for a lot of strata corporations around holiday seasons. You know, we see this around July 1st. You know, we see it around Easter. We see it around Labor Day. See it at Christmas. Christmas is probably the worst of all of the seasons together, because if we compound it with a snowfall, we've reduced the amount of parking when there's a greater pressure on parking need more than ever.
Exactly.
And if the streets themselves are messy and not plowed, it's going to be, people are going to want to get into parking lots. So it's going to be all kinds of problems. You're going to have all kinds of people parking where they shouldn't be, parking complaints. It creates a headache for the strata. So the strata really needs to make sure they've got a snow removal plan in place. You know, pre-negotiate a rate with your snow removal contractor. Many of the landscape companies through the winter double up as snow removal because it's a service they can provide through the winter in addition to tree pruning. It works well in that capacity. Then you don't have an emergency call. You know, it's if we get a centimeter or more of snow, the company automatically comes out, they remove it. You can negotiate what you think are reasonable terms. But you know, the other problem with that is, what if we don't clean the snow or we don't de-ice and there ends up being an accident? You know, an accident between two vehicles in the parking lot. Or a person is struck, or somebody slips and falls and hurts themselves. You know, the strata starts to incur a lot more liability. There could be injury claims. There could be claims against the strata corporation with respect to their insurance. And remember, as a strata corporation, you get any type of claim or any type of accident that you're dealing with, your first phone call is always to your insurance company. You need to let them know, are we insured? Whose coverage? How are we going to deal with this? Because they're your first line of defense when it comes to those types of claims.
So if there's a claim, if something has happened, you better let your insurance agent know pronto.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you have spent some money, you've got a claim about somebody being injured, and you've spent some money going to a law firm who may or may not necessarily be retained by the insurance company. The insurance company has no obligation to cover those costs, right? Your defense is the insurance. Your obligation is to them to notify them of this accident or this claim. You'll see circumstances, and there are accidents between vehicles in parking lots.
Sure there are.
But that's what the ICBC coverage is for.
We're not exactly legendary in this corner of Canada for our ability to handle snow.
Snow or ice seems to be
we're terrible
bit of a mystery to many of our drivers.
It just never lasts long enough for any of us to get a sort of handle on how to deal with it. You know, you start to figure it out, and of course it's gone for another year. So we don't do it very well. So yeah, there are a lot more accidents, I'm sure, per capita when it snows in this part of the country than probably the whole rest of the country combined.
It would be interesting to know the statistics based on the same amount of snow. But you just look at the terrain. If you're not in Richmond or you're not in a level terrained area, we have parking lots that are on slopes. Right? You get snow, you get ice, and it suddenly becomes that much more difficult to maneuver through these parking areas. So strata corporations really need to make sure that they are in fact dealing with snow removal and safe conditions on their property.
Does the property management company that is hired by an apartment building or a townhouse complex, do they typically address that issue for the Strata Council as part of the package of services that they offer?
They will, in most circumstances, they'll be responsible to coordinate the contractors.
Okay.
So the property management company would recommend, in most cases, that you have a pre-organized service contract for snow removal. That you have a pre-negotiated rate, that you know who is going to do your snow removal, and this is going to be the base fee that we're going to be charged, or so much per hour, and this is how it's going to work out. They have emergency call numbers, so if there's an after-hours problem that you can call, if we suddenly end up with an unanticipated heavy snowfall, tonight the weather turns on us, and we end up with 15 centimeters, and you wake up in the morning and the snow removal hasn't happened yet, and people can't even get out of the driveway to get to the street to get their vehicles out to get to work, then you've got some problems. So
what do we do with this dilemma? It's our turn to host Christmas dinner, and we're expecting, 17 people over to our little 2-bedroom apartment for Christmas Day. Where are all those people going to park?
That's going to be a challenge for them. There's probably not sufficient visitor parking. Visitor parking may have limitations of only 1 or 2 cars per strata lot.
But this is Christmas dinner, for crying out loud. These people are my family, my cherished guests. I want to be nice to them and put them up and take care of them.
Park on the street, park nearby, or better yet, take transit so that you can avoid drinking and driving. Take a cab. You can be safer as someone who's visiting for Christmas. It's not going to cause parking congestion. Use other resources if you can do it, because it makes it a lot easier for strata corporations. And if you park in the wrong parking spot and somebody can't get into their parking spot because of it, the person that you're visiting is going to end up facing the penalty for that.
Well, yeah, and you're going to get a rather sharp knock on the door halfway through that lovely dinner, and it's going to upset more than a few people. So I guess when and you're not going to have dinner for 17 and have it sprung on you a couple of hours in advance. Part of the preparation for that event has got to be where are all these people going to park, and making those arrangements well in advance.
Exactly. If you're an owner and you're hosting a lot of people, think about where they're going to go.
Okay. Well, again, it's that time of year. It's the hospitality season, and we can only wish all of our listeners the happiest and healthiest and safest of Christmas. I'm sure you'd agree with that. And any last-minute tips for strata owners around Metro Vancouver as we approach the Christmas season here, aside from be nice to each other whenever possible?
You know what? I think that the easiest thing for strata living for most people is just to remember that you're not living alone. You're living with other people, and there's a level of tolerance. In the nature of the holiday season, exercise some tolerance with each other. There's going to be noise from other units, and people will have parties, and there will be parking hassles, and people will be doing things in the building that you may or may not agree with. But try to exercise some tolerance, and it reduces the disputes and makes your strata living a lot better.
Outstanding website. I recommend you maybe spend a few moments over the holiday season ahead visiting CHOA, or CHOA, as they call themselves. The Condominium Homeowners Association of BC's website is choa.bc.ca. Its executive director from the Vancouver province and 24 hours, Tony Gioventu. Merry Christmas, my friend.
Merry Christmas, Sterling.
Back next month. See you next year.
Of a while